All right, welcome to Halitics. I'm Hal Ginsberg. So glad to be talking today. It is Wednesday, Hump Day, December 11th. And in case you're curious about my schedule, folks, I'll be on for the rest of this week. I plan to be on all of next week as well. That would end on the 18th. And then, I don't know. We'll figure it out. I'll probably be on the entirety of well, I won't be on Friday the 27th for sure. For Christmas week, I don't know. We'll take off maybe a couple days that week. I don't celebrate Christmas. I'm not Christian, but I'll definitely be off the 27th at a minimum. And the following week is when I'll be off. I'll be off New Year's week, at least through the 31st, through the 1st. Probably be back on the 2nd. So that's really the week I'll be off. But I think I'll take off Christmas. Why not? It's a holiday. It's a national holiday. You might as well do that. I was intrigued by an article that we'll talk about in some detail in Politico that noted that if Joe Biden follows through on a policy he's recently announced support for, that is to end cut rate financing for oil and gas and coal projects, international coal projects. According to Politico, if this happens, this could, at least one of their quotes is, cement his environmental legacy. So we'll get into that in some detail in a moment. I do want to let folks know why I was late today as well, just to billboard that. Then we'll get to the discussion of Israel, Gaza, which always is at the forefront of my program. But I was late, as I've been doing in recent weeks, going down to the Capitol to stand with Code Pink, which is really the foremost pro-peace organization that I'm aware of in this area, in this country. And we were waiting outside a House committee room where Secretary of State Blinken was testifying. And several of the Code Pink activists and advocates for peace, the pro-life advocates, were arrested. They apparently, they were shouting, including obscenities, at Blinken during his presentation. And that led to, and it will always lead to, an arrest. So it was a bit exciting. I didn't actually see it, but I could hear it because I was in the hallway. The room was full. He was testifying in response to a Republican subpoena about the withdrawal from Afghanistan. Obviously, the Republicans have made a lot of hay out of that, claiming it was botched, pointing to the high number of casualties. And usually when you leave an area where you have been occupying and you've kept your military there for decades, and your military presence is the only reason there isn't anarchy, because you've completely hollowed out the country, as we had done to Afghanistan, with the exception of the warlords, the Taliban. When you leave, there's going to be a power vacuum, and it's going to get messy. This happened in Vietnam for sure. So, I cut Biden a lot of slack for that, because in the end he did the right thing. He followed through on what Trump began, which was to withdraw from this country we were occupying and had no business being in. So, that's the last thing that the Republicans should be going after Anthony Blinken for. The first thing they should be going after him for is the genocide, but they're bought and paid for by the Israeli lobby as well, so they're not. But I thought that was pretty exciting, pretty interesting. And, the pro-Palestine activists that I was standing with made the point, as did I, that, it's just so awful, and you get frustrated, you get angry, your government doesn't represent you, you're not heard. And not only that, not only are you not heard, but the government is doing something that is just demonstrably wrong, cruel, evil. It's a war crime. So what do you do? In this country, you can speak out, except if it's in the House committee room. Otherwise, you can speak out and you won't get arrested. Obviously, if you spoke out in Nazi Germany against the genocide there, you would get arrested. You'd be put in a concentration camp. You might well be killed, even if you weren't a member of some undesirable group like a Jew, gypsy, gay, what have you. So it's tough, because we have that freedom, as I do right now, to speak, but it seems completely ineffectual. So you become extraordinarily angry, frustrated, resentful, because big money malevolent people, selfish people, greedy people, sociopaths get their way. And decent, caring, empathic Americans don't. It's a complete failure of our governmental system. It's no longer a democracy. And so those who argue, well, you have to try to convince people, you have to persuade people, you have to work towards the better positions to push government to do the right thing, as President Obama apparently said, or FDR said, and it's been quoted all the time, you have to make me do the right thing. You can't make these people do the right thing. They will not do the right thing. And you can't even necessarily elect the right person. We could have elected Bernie in 2016, but we didn't. And in 2024, we didn't even have a choice. You know, it was Kamala was, at least if you were progressive and you aren't a Republican, you had zero say really over who was running as a Democrat. That's why I didn't vote for a Democrat. That was your choice. You chose not to exercise it. I guess there is a democracy. People chose not to vote for the pro-peace, pro-healthcare, pro-life candidate. In Gaza, the situation, you know, I mean, it doesn't change. It's just as bad as it can possibly be. Tragic. You can see that image there from a few days ago. And usually I just give you a story with the print. I don't play the video, but this is from Al Jazeera, and I thought it was worth playing at this point.
Gaza ceasefire talks are underway in Egypt. Israeli media are reporting that Qatar is expected to play a role in the discussions. But at the same time, the Israeli military is carrying out airstrikes on residential neighborhoods in northern Gaza.
Just so you know, this is from earlier today. So those airstrikes are being carried out today. They were carried out today in residential, you heard what she said, residential areas in northern Gaza.
Israeli forces bombed a house earlier on Wednesday, killing 20 members of the same family. The building was in a residential area near Kamal Adwan Hospital. Israeli troops have laid siege to northern Gaza for more than 2 months, blocking the deliveries of humanitarian aid, food and medicine. Well, there's no let-up in central Gaza either. Israeli airstrikes killed at least 7 Palestinians in Al-Nazaret refugee camp. Again, members of the same family.
Just to be clear, so you had 20 people killed in residential building, and then you had 7 more by Israel. Israel killed, they targeted and killed 7 Palestinians in a displaced persons camp. Those deaths are on our hands. Their blood is on American hands. Just no question about it.
Last year, attacks by the Israeli military have killed more than 44,700 people. Most of them have been women and
children, she says. So I cut that off just a second too soon, obviously, but I heard the video when I said it. And she says, 75% are women and children. There's a little bit of a question about just how many, what the death count is. Al Jazeera said over 44,700. The Turkish news service TRT, and there's a couple. There's Anadolu Ajansi, and there's the TRT, which is also Turkish, I believe. Maybe TRT is Tunisian. I don't think so, though. They have 44,800 plus. The Al Jazeera number is 44,700, and Al Jazeera announced 27 more Palestinians killed at a minimum today, 20 in northern Gaza, as a residential area was targeted, and then another 7 members of the same family in a displaced persons or refugee camp. So I kind of fudged the numbers as, for my little meme here. What I have is, as of midnight, I went with a lower number, 44,700 Gazans. That's from Al Jazeera, killed by Israel. And then I used yesterday's total, 18 victims yesterday, because the 27 that Al Jazeera identified in the video I played for you were killed today. Israel killed them today. So again, the circumstances just horrific in Israel. Or at least in areas that Israel's targeting. I'm not convinced. Not bad in Israel. In fact, Israel, as Arlen said on Monday looks to be kind of in clover, right? Their enemy Assad is gone. Hezbollah has been largely destroyed. Hamas is just, hiding out under rubble. You'll never be able to kill everyone, or I guess Israel will try. And the question is, this will keep Israelis safe how? Well, it won't. In the end, there's going to be a response. There will be hell to pay. But I guess in the very short run, maybe they feel a little safer. The way you feel safe is you treat your neighbors with dignity and you give them justice and you include them in the decision-making process. And then, everyone lives. But that's not what Israel has chosen to do. And there's just no way to spin it. It's horrific. It's wrong. It's as bad as it can be. I'm trying to find out what TRT world is. I'm going to guess. It is Turkey because I just saw an article about Istanbul. So there. I'm glad I got that right. Can Joe Biden be an environmental president? That's kind of the question I asked. 240-242-5646, or is it way, way too late? According to, now, first of all, it's always too late, right? I mean, we've already done extraordinary horrific things to our planet, to biodiversity. Future generations are going to be living in a far poorer, less fruitful, less beautiful, less wild planet because of what humans are doing now and what we've done in recent years. So that's the fact. And so in that regard, it's always too late. The damage that we've done cannot really be repaired. It just can't be. It's just so significant. But that doesn't mean you don't try. That doesn't mean you don't do anything to try to prevent more harm, more damage. Is Biden in a position now where if he takes the steps as outlined by Politico, he could rehabilitate himself at least to some degree? That's something we're going to explore. And, my answer is no, you can't rehabilitate yourself. You've already done too much damage, Joe. But any little bit is better than doing nothing at all, or than continuing down the same path you've taken us down. So you've really, really screwed up, and there's nothing, you can't undo that harm. Once something is dead, once a species is extinct, you need another creation. You need another entire, millions, billions of years. You need 500,000 years of evolution, and you can never bring that exact species back. That's lost for good. But to recover the biodiversity that humans have, put giant cuts through, have largely destroyed. I mean, the food webs are tenuous now. The web of life is attenuated. Many species are barely hanging on. It's going to get hotter and hotter. We can't change that. But you can try now to do less harm and to turn things around a little tiny bit. So that's what we have to hope. Biden, in his last few days in office. I mean, the hope was also maybe he would try to stop the killing in Israel, or by Israel. I shouldn't say it's not in. The killing by Israel. That was the hope. Didn't happen. That was, and that goes to one of the issues we discussed at the event on the Hill. I was talking to some activists, one of whom said she had always voted Democratic and finally didn't. She couldn't do it. She couldn't vote for Harris in the last election cycle. And she and I were discussing this. I mean, I voted for Jill Stein twice in 2016, 2024. So I've gone outside the Democratic Big Tent before. This activist had not. But we were agreeing. We had zero remorse, zero questions about whether we did the right thing. At this point, given what Harris Biden has done, we're confident we did the exact right thing. There it is, 11th hour bid. So what's he going to try to do? What is Biden going to do? And does it matter? Here's what Politico has to say. He is supporting an effort to restrict international funding for oil and gas or natural gas projects, a move the incoming Trump admin might find difficult to unwind. We'll get into that a little bit. So do we want to restrict international funding for oil and natural gas projects? Why, of course we do. There's no question about it. Now, what are his motives? Are they all pure? I'm very skeptical. This may be that domestic producers, drillers, and I'm not talking about ExxonMobil because obviously, you know, they're going to drill wherever, whenever. They have the resources. This isn't going to put out of business major extractors. And I can already come up with, let me play that one more time just to make sure you get it clear. Please do subscribe. Please click like. Please do. I really would appreciate it. Please share. I can already see some sort of nefarious motive. Is he trying to restrict international funding because the biggest bullies in the sandbox, the ExxonMobils, the Chevron Texacos, the Shells, they're like, we don't need funding. We're sitting on $1 trillion. And if we really, really needed funding, we could go to one of our partner sisters and have a joint venture, which they often do. You have these joint ventures, ConocoPhillips with Chevron, etc. So this is more going after, to a degree, wildcatters, international wildcatters and like, but still anything to cut back a little bit on drilling is a good effort. So I hope he does. I hope this is successful. I would make one other point, that in the end, it probably doesn't keep it in the ground. I mean, that's what we have to do, is keep it in the ground. And in the end, this probably doesn't keep it in the ground. And the reason I say it doesn't keep it in the ground is because as the price of fossil fuels, of oil and gas, rises, the profits from extraction will also rise. And therefore, the venturers, the drillers, the wildcatters, whatever you want to call them, will be able finally to afford to get loans from commercial banks and from venture capital money. Right now, they go to the export-import banks because the Exim banks, and there's some in this country and other countries. This country has an Exim bank. It's part of it's a government organization, and there are many other countries that have similar opportunities, similar organizations that provide funding for various operations that governments may feel are in their best interest, in their country's best interest, but commercial banks may not provide the necessary funding. So drilling in the Arctic, drilling in some foreign country where there's, the government is unstable, that's pretty risky. And it can be very expensive. So JP Morgan Chase might be like, hey, we're getting really good returns on our income. We're getting good returns on our investments. Citibank, we're getting good returns. Goldman Sachs is like, we don't see, yes, we could put in some money, but we don't see that the return is necessarily going to justify the risk we're taking. So some of these companies go to the Export-Import Bank and they say, can you lend us money so we can go drill off the coast of Nigeria? And we know the Boko Haram is there, and we know that there's possibility that the oil market may collapse. But there's a lot of oil out there. And if we get that, man, it's going to be beautiful. And it's going to be profitable for everybody involved. So can you lend us some money at a little bit better rate than we could ever get from a commercial bank? And sometimes the Exim banks will do that. So Biden's saying, I want to cut off that source. I don't want to let those companies get that money because they drill more as a result, and they have extraordinary profits. The Exim Bank should be for businesses that really do promote the best interests of the United States. the Exim Bank here should be to lend money to companies that are really going to promote the United States' best interests, not that will exacerbate the climate catastrophe. So he's right. I'm with him there. Good job, Joe. Will this happen? It looks like there's a chance, but again, there's a lot of global instability. South Korea is struggling right now. There was a coup attempt, and the president there is dealing with it. He really doesn't have the time, the ability to respond to this kind of smaller beer type project. So it's unclear. According to, let's see, what does Politico say? A little bit more, just a little bit more here. Politico makes the point that climate activists have, by and large, and I don't think this is completely across the board true. It's certainly true for me. But many climate activists are really disappointed in Biden. I've heard some people say some good things about him. I really don't get it, but you know, as a climate activist, maybe you have some ideas on why he might possibly be, to date, a climate president. He certainly acknowledges the catastrophe. But climate activists have been saying you've got to stop financing these polluting fossil fuel projects. So I guess this is his little way of finally placating them. And there's going to be a proposal, so we'll see if this happens. It would be nice. And this is his last chance, right? This is going to, you know, because he leaves office, he's quacking like a very loud duck at this point. And maybe to be fair to Biden, you know, he recognizes the seriousness of the crisis to a degree. This is something he wants that's positive. You know, he knows his legacy is going to be terribly besmirched, probably ruined. He'll be, you know, on the list of the worst presidents ever. I think we can say that with some degree of confidence, given his backing of genocide, full-throated, unwavering backing of genocide. So maybe he's like, well, this is an awful thing, genocide. I'm already tarred with it. I'm already going to be recognized as the president who, more than any other, probably, well, at least in the past 150 years, maybe we'll exclude Andrew Jackson from this calculus, but at least in the past 150 years, perhaps, and maybe, you know, Nixon, he bombed the Cambodian people, and that was like a bit of a genocide there. I don't know if quite the intent was quite the same, but certainly the damage was extraordinary there. So maybe Biden's saying, well, I can't do anything about my legacy when it comes to Israel, Gaza. It's in the toilet, it'll never get out. But I can try to do something to reduce a little bit our carbon footprint, or the international carbon footprint. Maybe that'll happen. And if it happens, the way Biden's pushing for this, according to Politico, it'd be tough for Trump. Because if you remember this Exim Bank group, there's a lot of other countries, and they all agree to the same rules. You can't buck them. So that would be the positive there. So we'll see, you know, but will this cement his legacy, as Politico says? No. No, it's already really bad, and again, it ain't getting good. It is a notable shift for the president. That's true, because he's been all in for the fossil fuel industry. So it is a notable shift. To see it as cementing any legacy, And just so you can just be reminded of what Joe Biden has done as president, there you can see that giant pipeline, the gash through the mountainside there in West Virginia, and also Western Virginia. I assume that picture is taken in West Virginia, since it says the headline there from the New York Times, Biden admin approves key permit for West Virginia gas pipeline. You can see how ugly that is. And that relatively nice little rural area just totally scarred by what Joe Biden did, by his approval there. So you've got that. And again, please do click like, please click subscribe. I would thank you. I truly thank you for that. So that's one of the Biden climate crimes we see. There's huge Alaska oil project, Willow Creek. Biden admin approves huge project there. See it in this empty wilderness. I don't think his legacy is going to be a very good one. And it's not just, one project here and another project there. Here's U.S. field oil production since 2013, and you can see under Obama there was a steady rise until 2016, 2017, that last year in Obama presidency, it dropped a bit due to a ban on exporting. And then, we lifted our ban. So it's sort of weird. Like, we lifted our ban on export and yet our production dropped a little bit, but then it started to climb and climb and climb. That was Obama who lifted that export ban, by the way, which was a really bad thing to do. Really bad. And then production climbed and climbed and climbed under Trump, massive drop under COVID, and then right back up, climb until under Biden, we have records. Breaking Obama's record, breaking Trump's. So all three horrific for the environment, all three complicit fully in the climate holocaust. Joe Biden's legacy as a climate villain, not a hero, is secure. Unless you think that, it's no big deal. All right, we're drilling a little more. Maybe it's kind of a problem down the road. Every day we're breaking more and more milestones as we proceed down this road towards our own destruction, our own demise. This is from The Guardian, a couple days or yesterday. Arctic tundra now emitting more carbon than it absorbs. So what used to be a bit of a sink, right, where some of all that carbon dioxide that we emit by burning coal, burning oil, burning gas, the Arctic was a bit of a sink, but no more because of the wildfires that the ever hotter climate caused by human activities are driving, and also the melting ice. It's absorbing more and then reflecting more. More heat is being absorbed and then heat being reflected back up by the dark ocean waters that have been exposed by the melted ice. Joe Biden's legacy as a climate villain is fully secured. There's zero reason to believe that this 11th hour last-ditch effort to try to salvage his reputation can be successful. And just a little more, and I've talked about this many times, but it's just, I do this because we cannot view the Democratic Party as an ally. We cannot view the Democratic Party as helpful, as if we just go along with them, they'll bring about change. Maybe it's slower than we would like. Maybe it's going to be more incremental than we would like. But in the end, the Democratic Party will take us to a better place. Well, the changes under the Democratic Party, and we just saw that chart, got worse and worse under Obama when it comes to drilling, got worse and worse under Biden, got worse and worse under Trump. It doesn't matter. Biden administration oil gas drilling approvals outpace Trump's. Is that what the American public want? And just a couple of other things. So the approvals, now we'll get to, is that what the American public want? Is that what he campaigned on? Is this democracy? Is this the American people expressing their preference for more and more global, greenhouse gas emissions? Is that what we're seeing here? Well, before we get to that, I just want to show you just another chart, because you might say, well, Biden can't really control what the oil companies do. They may be drilling more, but there may even be more approvals, but he doesn't really control all of that. He does control the approval process to a very significant degree. That's his Department of the Interior, and it's his appointees. And they approved and approved And it's not just approving leases and approving drilling permits, it's actual production. Highest ever. This is on federal lands. We're not talking about, private areas that the oil companies own, big fields in Texas that they managed to extract more petroleum from where they actually own it. No, this is our lands, government property. This is national parks lands. This is forest land. And under Joe Biden, oil production has increased under has increased over Obama, over Trump. And it's, you can see the blue there is the oil. It's at by far the highest levels. But natural gas is very high too. There's zero reason to know. And Joe Biden could stop that. He can order an end to the drilling. Now, there would be lawsuits, no question about it. But he could do it, and then he could fight those lawsuits. Chose not to. And by choosing not to use the powers that he has to reduce extraction, to reduce production, he not only has exacerbated the condition of what I think we have to start thinking of as a dying patient, the biosphere, planet Earth. He also violated a campaign promise. The argument I've been hearing from some folks is, well, it's not the president's fault. It's not the Democrats' fault. It's the voters' fault. We don't have Medicare for all because people don't get how good it is. Not that because politicians are corrupt. We have a climate crisis because Americans want cheap oil, not because the oil and gas and coal companies own Washington. But Joe Biden, and there's a lot wrong with that argument. First of all, we don't have direct democracy in this country with a few exceptions when it comes to referenda and the like and voter initiatives. But basically, representative government is what we have. That means that we elect our representatives, and we do that in the belief, in the hope, and in the expectation that they're going to do what they believe is best for us. They're going to pursue policies that we like, but also they're experts. Presumably, they know more about a lot of these topics than we do. They have more time to devote to it. You're a farmer, you don't have really as much time to think about and to examine and look at the research on the climate crisis. If you work in a factory, you're not really going to be able to say, well, this is the best healthcare system. I mean, you probably could because that's a pretty simple one, but you don't have access to all the data. You're working your job. You're a defense lawyer like I was. Then you're reading depositions and you're taking depositions. You're not spending all day reading the New York Times and reading energy news and Energy World. So we elect people to, in some respects, to some degree, do what we expect and want them to do, but also to exercise their best judgment. And what we've seen over and over in Washington is that and in state governments across the land, that the electeds do what is best for them, what's best for their stock portfolio. Let's go to war because we just bought a whole bunch of military, stocks for military contractors. And of course, we bought those stocks knowing that we were going to have a vote and that we're going to vote to authorize missile strikes. Well, that's not democracy. That's not where your elected representatives are doing what's best. What they believe is best, what the evidence suggests is best. That's them doing what's best for them. Let's maintain this for-profit healthcare system no matter how bad it is. And how many people have expressed a desire to change it? It doesn't matter because our campaigns are funded by the for-profit healthcare industry, A. And B, we're going to look at a golden parachute like Dick Gephardt got $1 million a year lobbyist for the healthcare industry, or like Howard Dean got. That's not democracy. That's flouting both the best interests of the people and, in many cases, the will of the people. Did Joe Biden campaign? Did he tell us, oh yeah, I'm going to boost energy production, I'm going to boost oil production? So as angry as I might be, I'd have to, maybe go pound sand on the view, with the understanding that what I want isn't what most Americans want. Is that right? Or did he just flat out break a promise to the American public? All right, this is from New Hampshire.
President Biden told NBC's weatherman Al Roker this morning that he plans on seeking re-election next year. Our partners at PolitiFact have been tracking his campaign promises since 2020, including one he just may have broken. WRAL's Paul Spey explains the president's pivot.
When it comes to allowing oil companies to drill on federal land, has Joe Biden changed his position? Check out what he said on the campaign trail back in 2020.
Just a quick question about how you feel about drilling in the Arctic refuge.
Totally opposed to it. Completely, totally opposed to it.
Totally opposed to drilling in the Arctic refuge. And then we saw he approved that massive carbon bomb, the Willow Creek Project. He violated a promise. He campaigned. He said, I'm going to oppose drilling. And that presumably helped him get elected. That's what he told voters, who then voted for him.
Up there. And it's a real gigantic problem. And by the way, no more drilling on federal lands, period.
No more period. That doesn't even mean no more approvals. That doesn't mean only existing drilling will continue, but we're not going to have any more new. He doesn't say no new drilling. He doesn't say that. He said no more drilling on federal lands. We just saw under President Biden, there's been more drilling on federal lands than under any other president, at least when it comes to oil, and more than under Trump. So that's not democracy. That's plutocracy. Or what's his name? Who just retired, Krugman. I'll talk about Krugman's retirement piece tomorrow. It's pretty embarrassing, really, what he wrote. But he says, yeah, we have a caucustocracy. Either way, it's not a democracy, demos people.
Period.
No drilling on federal lands, period. That's what he said. And yet last month, the Biden administration approved a request to drill for oil in the National Petroleum Reserve in Alaska. You can see that headline here. Now, the lease for that land was awarded more than 20 years ago, and the oil company, ConocoPhillips, didn't start the permitting process until 2018, all before Biden took office. Still, the Biden administration, for its part, has noted that it reduced the scope of this project, rejecting 2 of the 5 proposed drill sites and requiring the company to give up about 68,000 acres of its leases in the area.
Which I don't think they even cared about. They are going to get so much oil out of there, any more would just reduce the price. They want that oil later on, they'll get it. He just flat out broke his promise to voters. That's not democracy.
Still, the administration did give final approval for ConocoPhillips to drill nearly 200 new wells, straying from that hardline stance Biden took on the campaign trail. That's why the Flipometer rates this a full flip-flop. Read the full fact check at WRAL.com.
Yeah, I'm glad they gave him the full flip-flop for that crap. No question about it. All right, 240-242-5646 if you want to join me. 240-242-5646. And again, if you get a chance, please do subscribe now. I periodically revisit now. I was a staffer at Our Revolution for a few years, and I made some friends there. I have actually a really close friend that I maintain my relationship with since we both have left that organization. But I don't, I have some regrets about some of the projects I took on there. But when I went to Our Revolution, when I started working there, I thought this is great. I got to promote truly progressive policies like Medicare for all, like an end to reliance on fossil fuels. That was my hope. That was my belief. And I have to say, the organization has really, over the years, in my view, really lost its way. And it's basically become just a fundraising umbrella, and it is not doing good work. And so I say not another cent. That's what I say. But here's what, and that's my opinion. They're fundraising off of the killing of that healthcare CEO. So much popular approval for it, a recognition that this was a blow against the empire. And hey, why let an opportunity to fundraise drop off? So they write, Luigi Mangione's violent act reflects the rage has been boiling just under the surface for a long time. I agree with that. Working people have long felt the excruciating effects of a healthcare system designed to let us suffer and die for profit. So that's violence, right? They're letting people die. They're cutting people off. If you went into somebody's hospital room and they had one of those like little oxygen machines and you unplugged it, that's murder. It's true you didn't take a knife and stab them in the heart, but if you take someone off of a life-giving device, that's not just letting them die. That's actually considered murder. Well, this is what healthcare companies do all the time. They're saying, no, we can't pay for that medication that we know from experience, based on what the doctors tell us, is very likely to keep you alive. Healthcare companies delay. They deny. And they do that, and we know this from what Wendell Potter said. He was a healthcare executive. They do that hoping you'll die. That's murder. That's flat out murder. So they're violent. Okay, the healthcare companies are very, very violent. But our revolution takes a different tack. We want to be unequivocal. We condemn the murder of UH Group's CEO. Violence is never the answer. Okay, it shouldn't be the answer. If you have an alternative that's better, that will work, I agree. We shouldn't use violence. What's your alternative, our revolution? See, if they had like a plan, I would be all in for it. I have a plan. My plan is let's unite in support of an alternative to the two major parties, the Republicrats. That's my plan. I actually will be attending Andy Ellis, who's running as a Green for governor of Maryland. I'm going to be attending his kickoff party next year, beginning of the year. So I have a plan. What's your plan, our revolution? Bernie even said, let's look at perhaps supporting independent candidates who aren't affiliated with the Democratic Party. Maybe that's something we need to look at. Is that your plan, our revolution? I don't see it here. We can't ignore that this rage is ruining reality, and we've all felt it. Yes, we have hundreds of thousands of medical bankruptcies. People are killed. They're not just harmed, they're killed. So you're right. You get a lot right. You get points from me for being right. But what's your plan? What's your solution, our revolution? Oh, by the way, that rhymes, huh? And I would love to interview any of their couple, three executives. I've tried and tried. They don't answer my calls. You can't get these people to talk to you. Same thing happened with PDA, professional Democrats, or professional Democrats. They're professionals, all right? They raise money off the Democratic Party to sheepdog you into voting for Democrats. Is that the answer? Has that worked? Or have we seen incremental change making things worse and worse? Wasn't Obamacare designed to reduce the number of medical bankruptcies? As far as I know, they've gone up. Wasn't Obamacare designed to prolong our lives so we'd have more longevity? I believe we've slipped since the Affordable Care Act was implemented. It certainly hasn't led to that bending down of the cost curve. Or at best, a tiny little incremental drop in the total cost curve of healthcare per person, but nothing significant. And I would note that Obamacare has actually made the healthcare for-profit corporations, big pharma, the healthcare insurers, it's made them even richer and more powerful. They get more money now because they get our tax money from the government. So what's your solution, our revolution? You called for people to vote for Kamala. I could be wrong, but I don't remember her campaigning on Medicare for all. In fact, she had previously stated 5 years ago, when she was up against Bernie in a contested primary, she supported it. She wasn't up against anybody in this primary. She was anointed by Obama. Well, actually, it was by Biden. I guess Obama reportedly didn't like the choice of Harris and didn't think she would win. Well, he was right there. So our revolution continues to diagnose, it's so terrible. That's why people are happy about the killing. But we're not, because murder's never the answer. But we sort of understand. So what are we going to do? We want to channel righteous anger into political action, not lawlessness. What's that action? What kind of action are you talking about? Who? What? The Congress is now Republican. Trump is not going to sign a Medicare for all bill. Not that Biden would. He said he would veto it. Not that Harris would. She never talked about health care. Not that Democrats ever passed a health care bill or even voted on one. Remember how the squad refused to force the vote? So what's your plan for getting it? Are you going to try to expose every Democrat who's against it? I mean, we've tried that and try to elect pro-Medicare for all Democrats like AOC, Ayanna Pressley, Jamie Raskin, because they've all said they're for Medicare for all. Except guess what they did? They all voted for Hakeem Jeffries, who rakes in millions from for-profit health care in Wall Street. And he's never, just like Nancy, never going to support Medicare for all. So what's your plan? Because I like that. Because I can see you want money. Donate now, right? And then on the next page of this, and this is why I'm now at not another cent. I ain't giving any of these groups any money. Donate today. So we see two highlighted donate. Well, I highlight them, but two donate todays. Yes, the oligarchs are driving the system, backed by Donald Trump. They're not the ones who are driving the system right now. Our revolution. Donald Trump isn't in power. Well, the oligarchs are, but Trump isn't. So what's your plan? What's your proposal? You want money. I'd like to know what exactly you plan to do. So they do have this big, bold thing, and I'm like, what is that? We are at a crossroads. Is that another donate? It doesn't look like a donate button. Maybe it's something else. So I did click on that just to see what they're talking about. And guess what comes up? Guess what pops up? I mean, you can't make this stuff up, folks. It's just the contribute now page. So they give you this long explanation where you think, or at least I thought, well, maybe it's going to sort of set out their policy, their strategy, how they're going to accomplish this, or they hope to accomplish this, how they're going to, put it together. The campaign, and this is what you get. Donate to support our fight. And that donate page doesn't give you any menu, any algorithm, any way to get there. None of it. It's just a fundraising. It's just give us money. Well, as I said, not another cent. If you are somebody who contributes to these groups, let me know. I'd love to hear from you. Why? What are you getting out of it? I don't just mean to bash our revolution. Progressive Dems, what are you getting out of it? Indivisible, what are you getting out of it? What have they done that you think is useful, helpful, positive? Or what are they even trying to do? Do you know? Can you give chapter and verse? I'd love to hear from you. There's a lot of privileged people in this country who were taken aback by, I think, the kind of the glee, the complete support, the embrace of Luigi Mangione really kind of threw them. Like, they're like, really? What's going on here? And so the Our Revolution folks are like, well, let's jump in front of this parade, see if we can, scratch a few pennies out of it. But we're also going to placate those who are pearl clutching, who are totally upset by it. We're going to say, no, violence is never the answer. Except the problem is sometimes it is the answer. I hate to say that when you've got nothing else, right? What are you supposed to do? That's what, if you are there's got to be, first of all, if we're going to have the conversation, there's some assumption. We need to make sure people get treated when they're sick. We need to make sure people get medication when they need it, when they're prescribed it. The procedures that are necessary to save their lives are available to them and not we're subject to some kind of prior authorization BS. I think when we come to that assumption, or that rather that premise, we agree on those premises for healthcare, then we discuss how to get there. Right now, the political system is not responsive to the people. The political system is not responsive to what research shows is right, what is clearly the best solutions. It's not responsive to that. So then you say, well, what do we do? And here's somebody who is giving a bit of a response. Well, don't shoot healthcare insurance or health insurance executives. Work for single payer. Okay, seems pretty vague. How do we do that? And I wanted to just show you the responses that were on social media that I thought were worth sharing. One was mine, but I was also really interested in what this person wrote, where they disagreed. And I didn't fully disagree. I'm like, yeah, I'm good with nonviolence, but what's your nonviolent solution? But one person writes, I respectfully disagree. Inaction has caused many deaths due to insurance companies and healthcare. In other words, if we're not going to be violent, then more people are going to die. Not that if we're violent, they'll be safe. That's the thing, is it's not going to work. And this has occurred for decades, starting with when Reagan privatized insurance. That was really big. And yeah, Clinton and Hillary did try with Harry Louise. That's true. And I think that was a better plan, certainly, than the Heritage Foundation's ACA. Anyway, billions of profit off the deaths and denial of needed care. And then they say, eat the rich. So yeah, what else can we do? What else should we do? And my response was, rather than blaming or shooting people, let's work to pass Medicare for all. My answer is, yes. And here's how I tried to do that. I did it by voting for Jill Stein because she supports Medicare for all. And I urge people to do that. And I will continue to promote only candidates who have demonstrated commitment to Medicare for all, not those, and I mentioned them before, who pay lip service but then support for-profit industry shows like Jeffries as their leader. So it seems clear, if you really believe in Medicare for all, and if you don't want healthcare CEOs being shot on the streets of Manhattan, if those are both important to you, and it really should be. I mean, we don't want, I don't really shed any tears, but some innocent bystander might catch a stray bullet. The next assassin might not be quite as professional as Mangione, apparently, if it was Mangione, apparently was. We could see from the videos. You might start having people, drive-by shootings of healthcare execs, and it might not just be a CEO next time. Maybe next time it's a COO or a CTO or somebody who's really not even that bad, not even that high up on the food chain. So yeah, I don't really want to have the streets of American cities littered with the corpses of executives, business executives. I'm not saying it would be the worst thing in the world, but it doesn't sound appealing. It's not the kind of country I want to live in. So if you don't want that, then what is your proposal? And mine is vote for Green Party candidates. If your answer is no, that's why we had to vote for Kamala, but she didn't support Medicare for all. She's not for it. This guy was shot under the Harris-Biden policy. All right, 240-242-5646. Love to talk to you. 240-242-5646. Oh, there's a little bit more. comments. Thanks guys in the chat. I'm going to just move through this. Got one more video I want to share with you. Shared one. I want to share a second. This is Bernie. Actually, it's the same video from the Young Turks. And I normally would go to the original source. Bernie's being interviewed here. I'm not sure where, but the Young Turks recorded it and commented. That is, Cenk did, along with some new reporter they've got. They're losing staffers over there. Apparently that group is having a little bit of challenge right now. But I thought it was instructive to hear what Cenk has to say about what Bernie has to say about working with Trump administrators. So here's Bernie.
If somebody on the other side has a good idea, sure, we'll work with them. Donald Trump came out with an idea during his campaign. He said, you know what? Credit card interest rates, which in some cases right now are 20, 25%, should not be higher than 10%. Well, you know what? I agree with that. So we're going to introduce legislation to do that. We'll see if Mr. Trump is prepared to keep his word. And we're looking forward, and we will work with some Republicans on that issue. So where, Trump and Republicans make sense, happy to work with them. And we will be in vigorous opposition to many of their policies, which to me are extremely distasteful.
All right. So I liked everything he said there. And we'll hear a little more. There he was talking about credit card debt and Trump's proposal to limit the interest rate that credit card companies can charge on that debt to 10% annually, which I don't think anyone would really object unless you own a lot of stock in a credit card company or you're paid by them and you get a big bonus if the profits are above a certain level. Then you might oppose what Bernie is calling for and what Trump is calling for, which is a 10% maximum or ceiling on credit card interest rate. So I'm good with that. And I'm agreeing with Bernie. Yes, go ahead, work with Trump. Of course we should be working with the current administration. They have the power. We're at a little bit of problems. He says we're going to, when they're going to be distasteful, we'll oppose them. Do you need to say that? I understand that there's a lot of things that Trump proposes we don't like. Giving Bibi carte blanche would certainly be top of that list. But cutting top marginal tax rates to 20%, I think Trump threatens. That's terrible. That's terrible, terrible policy. And it is distasteful. But if you want to work with the guy on something and you're giving him props for a good proposal, I wouldn't bring up the areas where I find them distasteful. I'd save that for another day. Cenk has a very, very different view. Let's hear just a little bit more from Bernie and then Cenk's response on the Young Turks.
Of sugar and salt that we have in products that our kids and adults are ingesting is an important part of addressing that crisis. When Kennedy talks about an unhealthy society, he's right.
So what he's saying is, we're going to work with RFK to cut down on the unhealthy foods in our schools and, the promotion of these sodas and sugary treats and fatty. I think the specific proposal that RFK Jr. was talking about that Bernie was referencing was to keep junk food like the Dorito chips, the soft drinks out of school lunches. And Bernie's 100% right that he should be supporting, and Democrats should support this endeavor by RFK Jr. So here's what the reporter from TYT says, and then we'll hear from Cenk.
Get your thoughts on some of these other areas, but I am wondering, where's the outrage from the right over making school lunches healthier? I was told that when Michelle Obama pushed for it, that was government overreach. Where's the outrage?
Yeah. No, of course, the hypocrisy is hilarious.
So that's a good point. There is a lot of hypocrisy on the right, but it's on the left too, obviously, all the time. Democrats talk about how Trump gives, or the Republicans give everything to the oil companies, and then they give everything to the oil companies. They don't say a word about it. There was a lot of criticism on the left of George W. Bush's wars. As soon as they became Obama's wars, nobody on the Democratic side of the aisle said boo about them. So there's hypocrisy both ways. But yeah, no, it's true. And the idea of having healthy school lunches would seem to be counter to the Republican brand. I'm glad if RFK Jr. will have the ability, the authority to implement policies that will lead to better foods, healthier foods in schools. That would be a great thing. Let's hope it happens.
They lost their minds because Michelle Obama was planting a garden. I mean, I've never seen anything more benign in my life, right? But now all of a sudden we're making America healthy again. But I always take the win. I never reject the win.
So I give him credit. He's right. Take the win. If the Republicans are prepared to pursue a positive policy that will have good outcomes, healthier Americans, healthier children, less profits for the fast food industry, that's a great thing. So you're right, Cenk.
Want to do it, fantastic, especially if they want to do it in the right way. So, and I love the way that Bernie is doing it, because he's saying the things that I disagree with them on, I massively disagree, and I think they're nuts.
Why do you think that's a good way to handle it, Cenk? Do you want the win? Do you make it more likely that you're going to get the win if you go out and say RFK Jr. is a bit of a kook and a fruitcake, which Bernie, that's paraphrasing him, said earlier in the video. I didn't play it. But that's what Cenk is referring to. Do you think you're more likely to get that cap on interest rates if you call Trump's policies distasteful? I mean, he's going to say, why the hell should I work with these guys? They're just trying to undercut me at every opportunity. Sure, they'll take something that they agree with, then they'll take the credit for it and they'll mock me anyway. So what Cenk is saying is wrong, but they have to say it, because this is what, they use that term a lot, audience capture, right? These professional leftist hosts have made a living, often a very good one. He has 6 million followers, or 6 million subscribers, does the TYT group, by demonizing Republicans, attacking them at every opportunity, abusing them. And I'm not saying a lot of the criticism isn't fair. It is. But you have turned your audience into these fire-breathing dragons who see nothing good in a Trump or Trump administration. And I've heard this. I mean, I've talked to people, and that's what the New York Times has done to people. I hate Trump. He's evil. I hate him. If you say, well, his policy, this particular policy is a good one, they look at you like you're crazy. Well, maybe, but he promotes it for bad reasons. That's not how you get the win. That's not how you get to yes. You get to yes by, hey, the president's promoting a good policy, so I support it. Period. End of story. Then when the president comes forward with a bad policy, or RFK Jr. says we should eliminate all the fluoride in the drinking water, which probably wouldn't even be that big a deal if we did it. But if your evidence says it would be, or we need to stop mandating vaccines, which would be a bad policy, then you say that's a bad policy. We oppose it. That's all. You don't make it personal. You don't say the guy's a nut job. You just work with them when you can, and you don't where you can't. But that's not what American politics has come down to, and that's because we don't live in a democracy. That's because our electeds put party, and even more than party first, they put donor first. And it's not in the Democratic Party's interests to work with Republicans, especially if it's going to reduce the profits of the credit card industry, especially if it's going to reduce the profits of the processed food industries. That's not in the Democratic Party's interest. But what I'm almost certain is there are Democrats right now rubbing their hands together, cackling, maybe we can get some of that processed food company industry donations that have been going to Republicans. maybe we can get some of that credit card, that MBNA money that has been going to Republicans, with Trump calling for a ceiling on interest rate charges. So they're not acting in your best interest. You don't live in a democracy, and you can't ever expect at least members of the Republican Party to do what's right, to do what they believe is right, to even care what's right. That's going to do it for me. I'll be back tomorrow. I will talk about Krugman. I really want to get into that. I think that guy's been I used to really like Paul Krugman, and I don't want to say he went over to the dark side. Maybe I evolved, but man, what he has to say, very disappointing in his adios column. I'll be back tomorrow. Enjoy the rest of your day.